Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And it actually surprises me that we haven't really talked much about Emergence since it is upcoming. They have virtually sold out from their initial set of seats that they had there. They even added extra seats, and it looks like those extra seats have sold out. Um, so there might be some additional seating coming up, but we will wait to see about that. It hasn't actually been announced, and those seats have been sold out for quite a while at this point. It doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of demand there. Perhaps I don't know what's going on there with that, but whatever it is what it is. Now, this won't be the finalized card. I am sure there's going to be a couple of other matches, perhaps here, especially on the pre-show or whatever you want to call it, the countdown show, etc. So yes, we will certainly have more matches than this, especially on the main card as well. Probably a couple other matches at least. This is a very deep card, and it has a lot going for it. I kind of want to wait to see what happens between Jordan and Ash by Elegance. I don't know why they're having like a singles match before this event, but maybe there's something they're trying to wrap their feud up really before the end of this show. I'm not too sure. That kind of feels like where they're at with this. But anyway, I guess we'll talk about that one first, since I'm already sort of talking about Jordan and Ash. But they're having a match this week. The match by Elegance. I don't really know how that's gonna go, but sure. Like, this is the thing. I like the idea that they're trying something new and something different, but it's like, having no concept of what the rules are or how you win and that sort of stuff sort of beforehand is a little bit of a hoop, I guess. But I'm sure it'll happen on the day. But one of those things it makes it great when you can, it is the main event from what I recall from seeing the match lineup card from last week. So if they build to it throughout the whole show and sort of explain the rules early on in the show, or sort of that sort of thing, that would be good, or whatnot. Video packages and that can help sell that. I don't really know why they're kind of having this 6-woman tag, but hey, it's a 6-woman tag and whatnot, so that's kind of cool in some ways, in some regards, and it helps spotlight some more of the knockouts in the division and whatnot. I think this is just a buffer match in some ways for Luna and Threat for getting their rematch, and it's probably a buffer match to try to get more knockouts, kind of out there and in the perception and around the space of being in the space of two semi-main eventers, stroke main eventers, as well, or two top knockouts and whatnot in the division. So just try to give that rub to the teams as well, and just keep the heat going. But anyway, it is Jordan Grace with Spitfire, Danny Luna, and Jody Threat against Ash by Elegance, Alicia Edwards, and Masha Slamovich. So I don't really have a great feeling that, as I sort of said, that Spitfire will win the tag titles but I do see Jordan and Spitfire winning this triple threat, this 6-woman tag and whatnot, just to sort of get that pressure on for the next time that they're going to challenge for the titles, which is their contractual rematch. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But I definitely see that they could win this match, and it sort of makes sense that, Jordan and Ash's rivalry is kind of coming to an end already. So they're going to move on to do different things. It doesn't make that much sense, since it's like, well, who are you going to stick them with? I mean, maybe you have to stick them with someone else after this. So And it's like, well, where do you go from here and whatnot? Because Ash really hasn't beaten a whole lot of people in the division. She beat a lot of jobbers for the most part in the division and whatnot. So it's kind of like, well, what are you doing there? And then you've got Rosemary kind of floating around. So yeah, I kind of want to see what they're doing there and whatnot. And kind of want to see Rosemary challenge for the title at some point properly on a pay-per-view when, she can actually, not just, have interference and whatnot from Ash or somebody like that or something like that. So, yeah, I can't wait to see a match like that come down. And it's probably, one of those matches that, Rosemary's trying to bank her last roll of the dice on in her career, I think, in some ways. And whatnot. So it will be nice to see, but it will not be nice to see in some ways as well. So yeah, but certainly good stuff there. Steve Macklin versus EY Eric Young. I'm feeling very much like Steve Macklin. Well, should win. I feel like that. Certainly, like Macklin, the new blood, as you might say around here and whatnot. Like, he's got a better shelf life than EY. You need these veterans, you need these legends, you need these icons, whatever it is, to be out there and to be, helping the young guys get over. And like, it's not that Steve's not over, but it's just helping legitimize him and helping keeping him in that picture of being like, hey, this guy could be there, and hey, he could challenge for the world title next month, maybe. I don't know. Depends what story they're gonna tell there or whatever they're gonna do. He'd be a fine stopgap kind of wrestler to go up against for Nemeth. Kind of feeling still like you might see Moose and Nemeth at Bound for Glory. I don't know. That does make some amount of sense. That could work out pretty well. That does seem like it could be a useful tool, and then you kind of can go from there with Moose, and hopefully, again, you're sort of still telling that story of Hendry's on the rise and whatnot. But it's really tough to figure out exactly when and where and how and why and whatnot that you're kind of trying to get there. But anyway, still, that's the goal, I feel like. And it's like EY in his career, it's like, man, this guy, I love this guy, but it's like, this dude has done everything, and the dude doesn't need a win here. It's like, I mean, it wouldn't hurt that bad, but it's just like, one of those things that doesn't make any sense unless you're going to build to something bigger. Maybe Victory Road, I don't know. But just, making people lose anyway is just like, well, what was that for? Even by hook or by crook, it's like, well, like, let's do something, let's give this, some more build to something else. And again, if you're going to try to build him towards perhaps being in the next contender to Nemeth, that is a good path, just for a stopgap for a little while and whatnot. So, and they'll should have a really good match. The 8-man tag between the System and Matt and Jeff Hardy, Joe Hendry, and Mike Santana. Wow, like they've pulled out the stops with a lot of these matches. And whatnot in the star power department and that sort of thing. So I feel like this is really an ongoing thing. And it does feel like, well, this, Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, I still think that they've got their contractual rematch with the ABC, so that will be happening at some point. Not sure when, but I kind of feel like they want to do something with the Hardys versus ABC. So I don't know, but then again, it's really going to be really tough for them to do that. But I just still think that it would be really cool to kind of see, Full Metal Mayhem, Hardys and whatnot, ABC. But then again, you could just like have Full Metal Mayhem with all three teams. That wouldn't be terrible. Like, you could arc back to the Hardys' history and, WrestleMania and SummerSlam and whatnot when they had those, matches back in the day and whatnot. But again, I think they're a bit past doing a lot of the hard labor there. They'd probably be the more of the Dudleys in this match, in that sort of a match, than themselves, I guess. But they could still do some stuff, certainly. So I guess a little bit more than that, but still, like, they wouldn't be like. And I don't think that Myers and Edwards are going to take that much risk and whatnot. Maybe they'll do some stuff here and there, but the ABC are certainly going to be the more able people to sort of do big crazy spots, I guess, in that sort of a match. But we don't know that that's going to happen. But I still feel like they think that that's kind of where they might be going, just to maybe put the ABC over a bit more and whatnot. But again, it does feel like that needs to be a one-on-one match. But then again, it feels like, well, it's such a big match and whatnot. You kind of want to have, every element in it, or as much as elements as possible in it, to make it even bigger. So I don't know, but it's tough, isn't it? So, but yeah, anyway, looking at this match, it's tough to say because, again, I feel like you do need the system to be hot and still credible as much as possible. So, and there's always that thing where Alicia can be in there and whatnot and help trip people up and whatnot and that sort of thing and provide distractions and things like that. So the system has more tricks up their sleeve, certainly. So I feel like the system could win. Despite all this, it kind of makes me feel like it's going to lead to a lethal lockdown. I kind of really want to see that. I really wish that they'd have brought back lethal lockdown back several times, and it just hasn't happened. But I don't know, dude. It's really tough to get another proper group, because there's not really many other factions per se in TNA besides the system, for the most part. So it's tough to find that sort of thing, especially on the babyface side. You just don't see that sort of thing really happening. And then in the end, you're mostly just saying, well, they're only going to team up to face them, one or two times or whatever else it is. And that does make it more special and whatnot. Certainly here is what you say. I don't know, without that kind of stipulation or something similar to that, I feel like the system will win. Without the sort of semi-guarantee, at least, of less interference and whatnot, or whatever, that sort of thing, the system will pull a fast one somehow. And again, that does make them feel like, well, the ABC, they need to face the ABC in their contractual rematch, aka Myers and Edwards. And you need to keep the system hot because, hey, you might be putting Moose in there against Nemeth, potentially at Bound for Glory. So we'll have to wait and see about that. So again, you just want to keep them hot as much as possible. Like, it's hard. I guess it's the same thing to say, well, you've got to keep Hendry and Santana there so neither of them can eat the pin. So it has to be either Matt or Jeff eating the pin. But then again, it's like, well, obviously Myers and JDC are the obvious pin takers on the system side. So it's like, well, that could be a thing again. So it's just like one of those things that you can't tell who's going to, wander away here with that win in some ways, because everyone on the babyface side is, up there, certainly. But then again, you say, well, the Hardys, it doesn't hurt the Hardys that much because they're just like a legendary team and you can't do much wrong with them for the most part, especially when you win by hook or by crook sort of style. It will make people feel like, oh, they got robbed and whatever else, and we want to see them triumph and whatnot. So we're going to see that at some point, and maybe they'll bring back Lethal Lockdown. Actually, I'd love to see Lethal Lockdown at Bound for Glory, but that would be really tough again because it's like, well, how are you going to put that together with Moose not being there and it only being 3 versus 3? But then again, maybe that's better because it's going to be hard to get a 4-person team or whatever together properly. I don't know. Really tough. But still, yeah, that's what I feel. I feel like the system's probably pulling this out somehow by hook or by crook. The Ultimate X match. Wentz, Hammerstone, Bailey, Hotch, uh, Riley Osborne, Laredo Kid. Um, I feel like Bailey has just won this title, and I really feel like they don't want to hot potato this title. Um, but the thing is about this title is like, man, it's like who in there has Bailey got to face? And maybe this match is kind of setting something up. I can kind of see something between Bailey and Hammerstone. That would be kind of cool in some ways. I think that would be pretty cool. But beyond that, I don't really see anyone that's properly in that X division that can really be that amazing. Like, I don't see that Hammerstone could win this match realistically. And again, Bailey's just feels like he's just won the damn thing, so I feel like that's just not going to happen right now. But then again, it's just like, well, you're sitting there thinking like, well, the story should be, in my opinion, should be something about Hammerstone. That's just me. With his characterization, that would be kind of really good for him to be like near the top of the mountain in this regard of being like the guy holding the X Division title and whatnot. That kind of would work really well, I think, in him getting heat and whatnot. And then somebody somehow finally, overcoming him some way at some point. That would be kind of cool. But it's like, well, are you going to do that next month? Like that still feels like it's really quick turnaround and feels like it's sort of a hot potato. So, like, I don't think Bound for Glory either, even though so it's still like, only a couple of months, for Bailey to hold that belt. So it's like, well, tough to sort of do, like, it's just like he's going to have to hold that title for a little while at least. So, and it just feels like there's just not that many really great challengers, or really great people for him to work against. And it's like, well, I really wish Mustafa Ali was back, because it's like, or something like that, or somebody else was in the division. Like, Jason Hotch can get pretty good heat, but he hasn't really been built up, so maybe, like, if they built him up for a few weeks, that'd be good. I like Wentz quite a bit. I think now that he's turned babyface, or sort of turned babyface and whatnot, and sort of on NXT, it's a little bit like, well, I don't know what's going on there. Is he staying? Is he going? What's he doing? And whatnot. That sort of feels, I don't know whether to feel like this guy deserves something, because it's like, is he staying or is he going? Where is his like loyalty lie, sort of thing. I don't know if he's just going to go to NXT, WWE after this. So, but we'll have to wait and see. But again, he does seem like one of those people that you could, get behind for a short period of time, just to be, one of those X Division guys. And it feels like, damn, the guy kind of deserves it after what's happened and whatnot. But then again, maybe, hey, doing something with Wes over in NXT, costing Wes the title, that sort of stuff. I don't know. It's like, is Wes gonna show up and cost his friend the title? They could do something there with those two. Maybe. I kind of want to see it in TNA, but obviously the WWE guys want to see it in NXT, WWE, whatever. So it's like, well, but their rivalry is sort of really started in NXT, so it really makes more sense to end it there, I guess. But still, their whole career, for the most part, has really been on the indies. Their tag team was really on the indies and in TNA, so I don't know. But yeah, I feel like Bailey's definitely retaining here. It's just too soon for him to lose this belt. It just sort of sucks that it's like there's no one in that division really for him to work with that has a lot of legitimacy that, feels like, oh man, this guy's going somewhere, or has something, that would make it feel like that fits or whatever. Um, I don't know. You could see something else, but yeah, I don't know. Not right on the ball with it right now, so I can't figure it out. And maybe we'll have to wait and see next week, this upcoming week anyway. And at least I'll have a look then as well and see what is coming up else here. So we'll have another look at the card then, couple days before or the day before the show. The 1 hour iron match between Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander. I've been going back and forth on this one a lot. I cannot figure it out because it's like, again, it's like this should be like really almost the Bound for Glory main event. Like, what the heck is this? I don't want them to hot potato the title. That's what I don't want. I don't want them to hot potato the title. But the thing is, if it makes sense, sometimes it's like, well, go ahead. But the thing is, it's like, does it make sense? It would be all right, certainly, if Nick Nemeth drops the title to Josh Alexander in some ways, but then where are you going? Are you going to crown Joe Hendry at Bound for Glory? Like, I think we've gone through this and we've gone through this and we've gone through this, and I've been saying, man, I don't really care, like, to see, like, it happen that way. It just doesn't make any sense. It's too soon. Like, if you would change the titles again, like, especially, like, then you're hot potatoing the change again, like, even more so. So it's like, yeah, that sucks. So I feel like Nick Nemeth is going to probably win this just based on that idea, like, that they're not going to hot potato the title right now. I kind of halfway want to see Nick Nemeth turn heel just so that then you can have Joe Hendry win it that way. I don't know. That would make some amount of kind of sense there if you could do it in the right way or whatever. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But still, I don't know. It's tough, and whatnot. You could really work on that, like you could really work on that idea, and there'd be something there with, like, like, I was a real superstar in WWE, even though he was like the perennial mid carder. People everywhere know his name. Like, even so, like, still he's one of the top guys that was over there, even though he was a perennial mid carder. It's like, you have to be pretty special to be, one of the, sort of people that everyone kind of knows, and was kind of a, wasted project, I suppose, or whatever you want to call it, in some ways. But he was a superstar. He was a real superstar, sort of, in WWE, and you could kind of lean into that. I'm a real superstar. You're just a flesh in the pan type thing, or whatever sort of thing, or kind of try to flip the script of saying, like, what everything Nick Nemeth was in WWE, kind of a failure and just a flash in the pan or whatever, like, not really capable of carrying, the brand or whatever, that sort of stuff. You could kind of have Nick Nemeth saying all that sort of stuff to Joe Hendry and whatnot. I think that would be kind of cool. I think that would be really good and could get some really good storytelling and heat, and draw a big gate and whatnot, and draw some good numbers and whatnot there. So I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense to me to really change the title. Even at Bound for Glory, it feels like, man, like, you've only had Nick Nemeth's only had this title for a few months. But then again, it's like, well, I don't know. Like, you've got to have something really, really big at Bound for Glory in the title match. Even if I'm saying, here and thinking potentially the dream match that a lot of people want, and I included, want Josh Alexander versus AJ at Bound for Glory. Like, that's a huge match. But like, and maybe that's such a huge match potentially that it is up there with like Rock Hogan or Undertaker Shawn. Like it would be the match that would be the real main event and would just like kill the audience if it wasn't on last. So I don't know if you don't put that on last over the title. It's like, well, is that smart? Like they've done that a couple of times where it's like, that these guys are going to have a really great match, and then you've got your main event or your semi-main events after that. It's like, and then they can't follow this. It's like that really hurts the rest of the card and the rest of the show because now the audience is just like, out of it. So ending with that big bang, of a match would be better. But again, it's sort of like tough, and it's sort of like, well, again, if the title match doesn't mean anything, it's not like to say, oh, it would depreciate the title. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you can't just have some random title match at Bound for Glory. You've got to have a match that actually, people are also paying to see or is worth paying to see as well. And the same with the X Division, same with the tag teams, same with everything. And I know like the main thing that draws the crowds is the world title. And what do people want to see? They want to believe in Joe Hendry. That's the guy that everyone wants to believe in. I kind of really wish that they'd do this in England somehow at some point. Go to England and crown Joe Hendry in England or Scotland specifically. But, like go over there and properly do it. Do it in his home country, do it in his hometown, properly. Like and they promised to go back to England back last in this year, but they haven't done it, and it looks like the schedule's pretty full. So it's like, well, I don't see them going to England this year. So maybe next year, but it really feels bad because it's like, well, are you gonna crown Joe outside of England? Like, sure, you can do it, but it would probably be better if you didn't and just like waited to go to England and do it properly. I don't know. It's really tough to figure it out and just like this is the plan. This is like you know like but I like we've said this before here and there like about Dolph Ziggler or Nick Nemeth. Now in WWE, he's had way better like heel runs than he's had babyface runs, and you know, like what are you gonna do with him? You like I keep going back to it, but like the biggest thing, the biggest homegrown star or sort of organic star that they've got right now is Hendry. They need to capitalize on that. They need to go with that and try to make that work somehow. Like how, I'm not 1,000% sure, but that is where they need to go. They need to go with saying, okay, we're going to put this belt on you, or we're going to build to putting this belt on you. You know, so as I said, it almost feels like you still have that idea, like potentially, of, and as I said, Moose and Nemeth feels big. It feels Bound for Glory big. I don't think that that's going to realistically happen at Bound for Glory, though, because it's like, well, would there be interest in that? Maybe a little bit, I guess. But, and as I said, there's Macklin there to have a match with or whatever. But there's also Moose. So and So there's still a couple of guys that are there that are in that main event, and I said, sort of, kind of want to see Rhino do something. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it's like you can't have him in the main event title picture. Like, I don't know. That sucks, but you know, it's would be a nice callback because he was the main eventer in the first Bound for Glory, so it would be at least nice to have him in this Bound for Glory, and it's in Detroit, his hometown, I believe. And it would be nice to put him in the Hall of Fame along with the Motor City Machine Guns as well. But hey, like, they're apparently going to WWE, but we don't know what they're doing because they haven't debuted yet. They've been kind of like hiding away for a while, and we're waiting to see what happens there, and when they're actually going to appear, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, you keep sitting and you keep thinking, man, where are they going with this? What is going on here? And it's not like to say that that's bad. It's to say that it's intriguing. I'm saying, ooh, is this it? Is it, like, what is the plan? Well, I'm trying to work it out all the time. Like, it's always got me on the tenterhooks. Like, sometimes you can really easily see the path. Like, it's obvious, like, this is where they're going. And once I sort of saw this is the path and this is where they're going, I was like, oh, okay, they're building to Alexander and Nemeth. Okay, cool. But then it's just like, oh, here's Alexander and Nemeth. It's like, well, that wasn't much of a build, but okay, all right, I'll take it. Won't say no. But it's like, man, they could have built this for so much longer. But it's obvious that they're trying to build something else. They're not just like, well, we're going to do this because, we've got other plans and there's a reason why we're trying to do this. We're not just doing it because, well, we can. We're doing it because there's something else, and it only makes sense to try to go in this direction or whatever. So I don't know, dude. I really feel like you're talking like it's like early next year, hard to kill that time period. And thinking, okay, let's look at going back to England, one big major pay-per-view, either Slammiversary or Bound for Glory. Probably Slammiversary. I feel like that makes some amount of sense. Unfortunately, it also feels like Nick Nemeth won the title at the wrong point, because it's like, well, you won it at Slammiversary, so it's like, well, you can't have it. Well, I don't think you can. Sorry, I should say, I don't think you can have him hold it for a year. I don't think that makes any logical sense in many ways. I think that would be too much. So I feel like you've got to have it probably at the early part of this year. Next year, rather. I'm already getting dyslexic and confused. So yeah, if you're gonna build something between Nemeth and Hendry, it feels like, well, that's not gonna be Bound for Glory then. I mean, and then what are you gonna have at Bound for Glory? So it sort of starts becoming like, well, you can extend this story, obviously. So, but then you've got one of the biggest, stars that's in your company, and yet they're not in the main event. And then you're giving them, but then again, you're giving them other things. Like, this is something where Hendry isn't in the main event, and he's their biggest star. It's like, or one of their biggest stars. Like, Moose is still a big star, and Josh Alexander's obviously still a big star and whatnot. And I feel like Macklin's kind of getting up there and whatnot as well. And Santana has a lot of potential, honestly, as well. But Jordan, obviously, if you're talking about women, Jordan Grace is up there, certainly. But I'm just talking about the men here for a second. And whatnot. Sausage first here, guys. Sausage first. But yeah, like, It's really tough, isn't it? It's like if you're looking at ahead, trying to look ahead and go, well, why is this? Where is this going? Like that's the key, I feel. So yeah, I do feel like you could pull back a little bit and say, okay, well, let's extend this. Let's find a way to go to England, rebellion or hard to kill or whatever else it is, and do this right. Do it in Scotland, do it in Joe Hendry's town. But then it's like, well, it's too obvious, isn't it? Like, to an extent, like, why are you going to England? Well, we said we'd come to England or come to Scotland or come to Wales or come somewhere. It's like, well, why are you going to Scotland specifically? Well, it's got to be for a specific reason. And it's like, well, if we aren't going to put Joe Hendry, if we're not already kind of building to Joe Hendry, it's kind of like, well, why wasn't that already announced beforehand? Like, you've got to have the match kind of almost set up before you know where it's going to be, so that people go, yeah, but as soon as you also say that this is going to happen between these two, or you start setting it up, it's like, well, where's it going to be? When's it going to be? So it's like, and that's a two-faced coin. It's like, well, it's the same problem of being like, well, once you're in another country, like, it's like, well, how do you produce TV without having to tape stuff, And again, it's like, well, are you going to be able to get people to come to a live, broadcast on a Thursday night or whatever it is, like, so, yeah, you're in a real tough position to try to get those fans through those turnstiles, in those gates and whatnot, and in those seats on a Thursday night. I mean, it's crazy that people do it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday night and whatnot. But now you're also asking them to do it on a Thursday night. It's like, I know TNA has its own fans and whatnot as well, but still, I don't know. Still, I do feel like that could work, So, but I think we've just got to wait and see, I guess. But it's really so much like a head scratcher of being like, okay, this guy, you've got to start trying to push this guy, but you've also got to try to level things out and keep things drawn out and wait for the right time and the right positioning to try to do it. And it's like, I think, again, you say, well, you don't want to dangle that carrot too long, but also you've got to be realistic. Like, let's look at Joe Hendry's contract. It's ending at the end of next year or whatever it is. So it's like, well, we've got to, that window between now and then to sort of, put our stamp, or try to put our stamp on him and say, hey, no, like, if you stay, you can expect more of this. You will be, up there, you'll be well presented, you'll be our top guy, and, you can go out there and do interviews and, whatnot, and all this sort of stuff and whatnot. So, and we'll promote it and we'll do everything that we can do, but, we've just got to get out there, that, hey, we want you to stay, but if you don't stay, well, we can't do anything with you, and therefore we've got to take that belt off of you, and you've got to put somebody over on the way out. So, like, even like, if it's coming down to the deadlines, it feels like, well, we've got to make a decision here, and you haven't signed back up, so we're kind of getting the message here that you're going, and whatnot. So at this point, now we've got to say, well, we love you and we respect you and whatever else, and we thank you for everything you've done, but it's time to say, no, we're not going to continue this relationship in the way that it is, because if you don't sign back with us, we can't continue to work in these sort of parameters. We need you to decide what you're doing, or at least tell us plainly and simply, this is what I'm doing. We're not going to tell anyone that you're going to WWE or whatever, but it'll be obvious, obviously, in this regard. But we need to know, right? And on your last night, all right, cool. We're going to have you lose and whatnot, and then you're going to fade off into the distance or whatever else it is. So maybe there is a deal there with WWE to continue it after that, but I don't know. But still, it does feel like, well, maybe there could be, because it's like they might want to have the TNA champion on NXT, and as I said before, like, maybe you could have someone from NXT come over. I kind of felt like you should have, the North reform in some ways and whatnot, and do stuff together, almost like dual champions, like or whatever as well, singles champions, singles world champions. That would be kind of weird and funny, but kind of cool as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough, and whatnot. And then you've got to also think that it's like, well, there's also Josh Alexander, who's just coming off, Bound for Glory. What are you going to do with him, or whatever, for a couple months? It's like, I don't know, dude. But then I guess you can extend it further. I don't know. So I don't know. But yeah, I've sort of said that Nick Nemeth could go to NXT with the title and do some stuff there, and keep that whole thing going and try to get that crossover going. So it's not a 0%, but it's just like, for the most part, TNA has been throwing things at WWE. Like, they've really thrown things at WWE. Like, but WWE really hasn't, like, thrown much to TNA, realistically. So, but, this is early days in some regards of the relationship, I guess, to an extent. And I feel like some people are, again, we've sort of discussed this a lot, that some people are of the opinion that, even the top guy in TNA isn't even barely a entry-level guy in WWE, which is clearly wrong. But again, there is that perception there to some degree and whatnot. So there is that issue there of people not seeing how big some stars are, or how important some stars are and whatnot in the scheme of things and whatnot, and that sort of thing. So, but still, it is what it is. But I will wait with bated breath for this week's edition, and see what the updated card is, and we'll go through the last few matches, whatever else is put on there for the Emergence card. And then after that, we'll see where they're going towards Victory Road, because that will really tell us what's happening at Bound for Glory and whatnot. And then we'll see what happens along the way as it comes to us. So we always know it's great stuff that they put together, and sometimes it is a bit last minute or whatever, but still it is, really strong pro wrestling. It's not just things happen and then stuff. There's always sort of a story to these sorts of things. There is sometimes where it's like, well, this match is happening and that's a bit random, but it's usually setting up for something. So, yeah, that is usually the way it goes. It usually forms towards something more concrete. And you sort of don't really see that sometimes. It's like, well, if you just see, like, always seeing an outcome on TV sometimes is a little bit bad, because it's like, well, now you've seen it. Now you've seen the outcome. Now you know who's going to win, who's going to lose. This person's going to win, that person's going to lose, because that was the outcome of that match. So I was like, well, what's the point in seeing the match again in some points, unless there's raised stakes or whatever, that sort of thing. I kind of still, as sort of said, want to see Shaw and Steels kind of go at it. I think that could be a match on this card, or even at some point soon, in some sort of hardcore match. Kind of want to see that. So, but we'll wait and see. Maybe they won't have another match. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll figure something else out. I really want to see Carlin King back. I really want to see her come back because I want her to see her just like come back and absolutely stomp Jordan and win the title. That's kind of what I want to see. I kind of would like to see that. It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, like beyond that, it's like not a lot would be that interesting to me personally. Like there's some people that I'm super invested in, certainly, but it's just like, whatever. If they do it at some point, yeah, I'll be happy. But like those are the things that I'm just like hyped to see right now. So, but anyway, you guys can let me know what you guys are hyped to see. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and hope you'll join me again in another one.